A legendary weekend in the Lou. PGA Tour champions compete in the Stifel Charity Classic, presented by Compliance Solutions, September 4th through 7th, and COAR. Perform live with your Friday ticket. Visit StifelCharityClassic.com today.
And welcome into the Cardinals Central Postgame Show. I'm Sara, Dayley, alongside Ethan Hannaford. The Cardinals with an odd game win against the Rays, 7-4. Palante pitches into the sixth as he's still looking for some consistency. Not exactly everything that we want to see out of him, but quite a few action there for the Cards tonight, and just kind of hanging on to something after Miami. So it's an odd sight to be at Legends Field, I guess, so to speak, instead of Truck Field or whatever they call it nowadays. But, after the hurricane and stuff, they're relocating, and NFL's taking precedence on Saturday. So here we are at Legends Field, just south of TIA in Tampa.
Yeah, a weird game is a good way to put it. There was just a lot of different moments in this game when you're looking and saying, okay, I didn't expect that ball to carry that far, or boy, the Rays played some terrible defense. I mean, you could argue that the Tampa Bay Rays defense tonight was about as good as this stadium is. And this stadium is, it's AAA material. It is not a major league ballpark. So obviously disappointing night for the Rays, I'm sure. But I mean, as a Cardinals fan, you look at what you saw from them tonight and you're thinking, boy, it could be worse. So good stuff from St. Louis all around tonight. I thought Sonny Gray wasn't his best, but he's able to get you through 5 innings. You're able to preserve a lead going into the bullpen, which has been so strong for St. Louis. So you'll definitely take it. You'll definitely take it.
So what do you think about the bats, though? I mean, that's been a topic of conversation for us the past couple of nights as far as what the Cardinals have done, putting the ball to the bat, and They put up runs for sure in certain situations, but it just hasn't been enough. And then here we are again tonight where they actually did something and now it worked. But what's going to be the consistency factor? When are they going to just kind of find their slight groove to make sure this whole remains?
I don't have an answer to that one for you. And honestly,
come on, Ethan, you're supposed to have all the answers.
Well, here's what I will say. We've played how many games of baseball this year, and the Cardinals still haven't found their consistency offensively, right? We'll see nights where it looks really good and you're extremely encouraged, and there'll be stretches when it's non-existent. And that has been the style of this team all season long. I will say tonight was an encouraging sign. Lars Nootbaar, 2 hits at the top of the lineup. Ivan Herrera had a base hit. Alec Burleson continues to hit the ball really well. Wilson Gutierrez, of course, had the home run and a couple of hits. Mason Wynn, who's been quiet of late, has a hit. Nolan Gorman has 2 more hits. Should have been 2 doubles. He singled off the wall, something you don't see very often. One of the weird things you saw tonight. So overall, I mean, you look at the offensive production, and that's encouraging, right? We've talked about the positive direction that Gorman has been trending in. I think Lars Nootbaar has looked better since coming off of the IL at the beginning of August as well. And guys like Burleson and Contreras have been pretty consistent for you this year and what you've been getting from them. So overall, a good product tonight offensively. I also really liked what I saw from Nathan Church. Still looking for that first career major league hit. He did just about everything else tonight. Had an RBI. Go ahead.
No, he's tallying up everything else. I mean, your hit will come, but at this point, you're racking up what's important, and that's a positive.
Yeah, you like the energy that he plays with. It's the kind of energy you want to see a young guy come up with, right? Some of these guys, I think at times it can get frustrating, right? Because you are seeing when you're here the entire year, you're here for the highs, you're here for the lows, and when you're coming up as a minor leaguer like that, you don't have any of the history from the season, perhaps pulling you down. So maybe there's a little bit of extra motivation. So, I've liked what we've seen from him in these first couple of days. The bat hasn't necessarily caught up yet, but He's played really good defense. Think he's had some really good jumps on some balls in center field. Has a great arm. We've seen that a couple of times in these first few games. We saw it tonight with him nabbing that runner at third, preventing that run from scoring as well. That was a huge moment in the game. You're talking about this getting to a 2-run deficit at one point for Tampa. If they score that run, if that throw isn't in there on the money, it was. And the Cardinals, I thought that was one of the bigger momentum swinging moments of the game, as far as the Cardinals being able to a certain extent put a dagger into the Rays tonight. So yeah, Nathan Church's arm, his speed, his ability to put the ball in play, I think all of those have been good signs so far. And like I said, that's exactly what you want to see from a young guy coming up, and you hope his bat's able to catch up.
You're exactly right. And I love the fire in him. I love the fire and the intensity. And, sometimes you need a little spark once in a while just to like give a little bit of a reboot. And I think that's kind of what it is. I misspoke earlier and said Palante, and I meant Sonny Gray. Like he had 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, 3 earned, 1 walk, 6 Ks, and 1 home run. So he's now looking at a 4.33 earned run average. So Sonny's been one of our consistent guys, but you're still looking for, I guess, just a little bit more. I hate saying like you're looking for more, but I mean, we don't have that consistent starter, right? The one that's going to consistently not have like the extreme highs and the extreme lows.
Yeah, when you look at this rotation, there's just not enough completeness, right, from 1 to 5. You have Sonny Gray, who on certain nights, I see my screen is frozen here. I'll fix that in a second. But what you see, you have certain nights where Sonny Gray looks like a 1. You have certain nights where he looks like a 5. You don't get nearly enough consistency out of him. Matthew Liberatore, I thought, looked like a 2 or a 3 early in the season. But we know the fatigue issues have kind of caused him to be in this really weird spot where he's not really being able to provide you much consistent quality per se. Yeah. Miles Michaelis has nights where he looks like he could be a 3 or a 4, but in large part it's averaged out to be back-end stuff. That's what you expect from him at this point in his career. Andre Palante has been a 5 consistently throughout the season. That's kind of what you expect from him. And Michael McGreevy has probably been a 3 or a 4 in his time up in the major league. So you heard I said one guy that's a 1 on the occasion, one guy that was perhaps a 2 or 3 earlier in the year but's been back end, and then 2 or 3 guys that have been back end guys. So you haven't gotten enough fluidity as far as having that solid 1, a couple of middle of the rotation guys, and a couple of back end of the rotation guys. There's been too many back end of the rotation guys. And, you said Sonny Gray's been consistent. I would argue that he actually hasn't been consistent. Or you said one of the more consistent guys. And
I said more consistent.
In the list of those 5, he's been closer to being, I guess, better more of the time. But in reality, there's no one really on this in this Cardinals rotation that has been consistent. I think you would probably have to say that Michael McGreevy's been the most consistent guy. And that's really saying something at this point, in my opinion.
Yeah, so some of the comments here, you have C. Romero saying, I'm looking forward to what the roster will look like next year. Hopefully Marmo will be a part of it again. No doubt. I mean, like he's got a lot that he has to deal with right now, right? And you've got a lot of players that are coming up and coming to in their fruition of what they're going to be and things of that nature. So I don't doubt that there's not going to be any stars or a lot of talented players. I mean, the Cardinals do have a lot of talented players. It's just a matter of figuring out what works, right? And the injury situation working out and like everything kind of coming together as one piece. So I don't feel like that is a situation where Cardinal Nation is saying we're completely kaput, right? Like that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that looks at 2025 from what the realistic expectations were going into the season and is saying it is a absolute and pure failure, I just completely disagree with. Not to say that there aren't some things that you are disappointed with and how they've gone in 2025 as far as how things have been handled at certain times. But overall, I think there are positives to take from the season. Like I said, based off of what the expectations were, right? This was meant to be a year to figure out who are you going to buy in on as a part of your future? And the Cardinals have been able to do that with several players. I think they're pretty confident that Ivan Herrera is going to be here for years to come. They know they have cemented what they had an idea of what they had in Brendan Donovan. I think they know exactly what they have in Brendan Donovan now. Mason Wynn has continued to play the best defense at shortstop in Major League Baseball, and his bat has remained consistent in that 260 to 270, 700 to 720 OPS. Victor Scott, I think, has shown some really good signs defensively. His speed, his bat has a little bit of work to do as well as his approach, but I think there's been some good things there as well. Alec Burleson, he's been a great plus for the Cardinals this year as far as being able to consistently hit for average, provide extra base hits as well, be an RBI guy. I really like what the Cards have seen from him. There's a couple more in there as well, I'm sure. I mean, Nolan Gorman. Nolan Gorman's probably the most recent one that you can discuss. You look at his last 2.5 months, and Nolan Gorman has been, I think, pretty solid. The batting average is right around 250. The OPS is right around 830, 840. He's tied for the team lead in that time in home runs. Nolan Gorman, when you look at his player profile, a guy that is playing third base more lately with Arenado being injured, but in large part has played up the middle at second base. There isn't a lot of power, a potential for power like that in the league for a middle infielder. And then when you take into consideration the lack of power that this Cardinals team has, that power all of a sudden, even if it isn't the 40 home runs like we were hoping it would be at one point, even if it's 25-ish, like that's still more than what you're getting right now consistently from anyone else in this Cardinals lineup. So Nolan Gorman, I think, has taken some great steps. I think in the last couple of months, no one has taken more advantage, arguably, of the opportunity than he has as far as looking at where he was at the beginning of the season, even where he was a month into the season compared to where he is now. So I think there's been some good things from him. I say all that to say long-winded, but there have been some positives as far as figuring out, picking apart and seeing, okay, who do you like for the future of this team? Who are you maybe shopping in the offseason? And I agree with C. Ramirez's comment here. I'm looking forward to seeing what this roster is going to look like as well next year. And I agree. I hope Ali Marmol is a part of it as well. I think just as much as I'm looking forward to seeing who's going to be a part of it, I'm also excited to see who's not going to be a part of it, because and that isn't to say I'm looking forward to guys being shipped away necessarily, but I'm looking forward to this lineup and this roster being decluttered, because it's extremely cluttered and you need to bring some necessity in. And the top one would be starting pitching. So you hope that the Cardinals are able to bring in some pieces that they most desperately need from that surplus. We'll see just what exactly the league-wide value is for some of the guys the Cardinals could potentially be shopping in the offseason.
So, of course, Davis Mullins weighing in on this. He said, has the runway run out on Walker? Why hasn't he been playing? That's a good point.
It's a good question. 3 out of 4 games now, we haven't seen Walker in the starting lineup. Jordan Walker, how do I want to say this? Jordan Walker is young. He's very young. So I think you have to take that into consideration with a guy that has been so highly regarded in the organization as well as league-wide as far as coming up and looking at what his potential could be. But we know that there have been some differences in the approach for Jordan Walker in the last couple of years between how the Cardinals think he should go about it and how Jordan Walker and his crew thinks that he should go about it. And we just heard a couple of days ago, it may have been on Gas House Gang, I'm not entirely sure. I saw someone throw out a quote that that Walker is finally bought in on the Cardinals' plate approach for him, his process for how to take cuts and all that good stuff. And ever since then, he's really been quiet. I think I saw he's like 2 for his last 25, a lot of strikeouts mixed in there. So I don't want to say that this is an Ali Marmol is over Jordan Walker. I don't think that's fair to say because I don't know. But part of me wonders if The approach, it just isn't necessarily what the Cardinals want it to be, and that's why we're not seeing Jordan Walker play nearly as much. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think Jordan Walker needs to continue to be playing close to every day. Ollie Marmol has a really tough job and has had a really tough job all season long because he's had to navigate a lot of redundancy. And one of those pieces that he's had to try and find a spot for is Jordan Walker. Do I think Jordan Walker should be playing just about every day? Yes. Am I surprised that he has been out 3 of the last 4? Yes.
I am. Yeah.
I'm going to be very curious to see what the next week looks like for Jordan Walker, because for all we know, this could have been a couple of planned off days where Walker is working on some stuff behind the scenes like he was earlier in the season, and he plays 6 of the next 7. That could be what it looks like. We don't know, and we'll just have to wait and see.
So Mason Windu saying the Brewers' first team to 80 wins, of course, not something we care to see. I think the Cubs also may have won tonight.
They lost. Cubs lost.
Oh, they lost. Okay. Well, good. I just want to say that. Well, good. There we go for that. But yeah, the Brewers clearly just doing really well in what they have right now. And Richard Talley saying the sad thing is if the Cardinals would have done anything last offseason, they probably would be in good position for playoff spots, especially since the Braves have been decimated by injuries. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, like there's a lot of moves that a lot of teams could have made to make a definite difference. I don't know.
I don't know what you would
predict injuries, right? I mean, like that's not something that I would really say.
I don't know what you would have preferred for the Cardinals to do necessarily. I mean, you had so many guys on this roster that at some point you had to figure out what you had in them. And so too many of them had no value going into this current season. So at some point you were going to have to wipe the slate clean and say, listen, they're in this weird spot the last couple of years where they're trying to win, but the roster clearly is not good enough for them to be able to do so. So at some point, you're going to just have to wipe the slate clean. And that's kind of what they did. They could have brought back Paul Goldschmidt. They decided not to. Nolan Arenado has been trending in the wrong direction consistently. Yeah. There just hasn't been enough room. They decide to move Wilson Contreras from behind the plate. So, is there a world where the Cardinals could have, added more, financially wise on the market? Sure, but it wouldn't have changed. The biggest issue is that the Cardinals have not been able to develop star talent in the last 10 years. They haven't been able to, and that was at one point the DNA of the St. Louis Cardinals. They are one of the smallest markets in baseball. They are not going to be able to compete with all these teams that are giving out these massive $200 to $300 million contracts. So at some point, you were going to have to figure out how to get that right. The money has been spent off the field more so than it has been on. That doesn't mean they couldn't have spent more than $2 million, but I don't know. It felt like what happened in 2025 was inevitable, and it was going to happen at some point, whether it was this year or next year or 2029. The sooner you got through this year and potentially next year too, the sooner you can get back to competing in the way in which you are used to the Cardinals doing it. Being able to use the market to their advantage, but not solely relying on the market.
Right. And as Steven says, is it just me or does Burley remind me of a younger Donnie? Or better yet, does Burley remind me of anyone? Lance Burkeman, Texas Rangers, then later St. Louis Cardinals for a while. Well, I mean, I don't think so. I think he's definitely stronger, more consistent.
I think Lance Berkman early Lance Berkman is a good comp. I don't think he's hit the peak that Lance Berkman did necessarily, but similar position breakdown, corner outfield, first base. Berkman, I think, had a little bit more power, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad comp off the top of my head without looking at any numbers as far as just their makeup goes. Donnie, I don't see that necessarily. I think that Burleson has more power potential. I think you could actually make an argument that Alec Burleson's a better hitter than
better. Yeah, I was going to say better player.
A better hitter overall. He has more power. And you look even back to his time in the minors. I mean, just a consistent hitter throughout throughout the Cardinals minor league system and has carried that to the major league level. Different position makeup. So I can see kind of the Lance Burkeman one, but I would not compare Lance Burkeman and Brendan Donovan in any way whatsoever.
Davis Mullins, Mets lost, so we're back to only 4 games back in the wild card chase. So
all right, guys, listen. If we didn't
saying there's a chance,
if we didn't learn this lesson like literally a week and a half ago when the Cardinals won 4 of 6 against the Cubs and the Dodgers, and then they followed that with 5 losses in a row against the Yankees and the Rockies. Listen, if the Cardinals, it doesn't matter what the standings look like, because if the Cardinals are solely relying on the Mets scuffling or teams falling apart in order to get in, it doesn't matter. I know it's fun to keep an eye on, and I get it, for some of these comments might just be fun and games, but unless the Cardinals start playing a consistent brand of baseball that's going to where they're going to be able to control their own narrative rather than having to rely on other teams, this isn't going to work. Because you look at how good this Mets bullpen is, you look at how much talent they have on that roster. I know they've been scuffling of late, but the odds of them continuing to scuffle like they have been is just not realistic. So if the Cardinals want to get to that point, they need to play more consistent brand of baseball, similar to what we've seen against the Marlins and the Mets.
All right, a couple more comments here. Mason Windu, Downey has much better hair than that's funny. Has much better hair than Burley. Well, whatever. That does not matter. Wild card stuff, Bibles and BBQ. I'm into the word. Also need my 110 wins. Doesn't matter if it's regular season or winning them playoffs. Well, I'm going to stick to my 90 though. I mean, I still hope they get close. I think they can possibly pull it off.
Oh, 90? No way. 0, no chance.
No,
I would. Oh, no. No. Listen, we're 120 games into 160 game season, and they are still under 500. They would have to go 30-10 in order to hit 90 wins. That is not happening.
They can't still stick to it though. I'm not going to stand by it. I'm not going to be I'm bailing out.
I appreciate your devotion to it, but it is not happening. Why don't we go ahead and take a quick pause, and then let's talk about the bullpen, how they look tonight, and in that direction, because the Cardinals bullpen continues to be really strong, in my opinion, and I think there's a lot of stuff to be encouraged about for 2026 regarding it.
100%. Nothing beats relaxing on a hot summer day and watching baseball. And around the simplest way to get to the action is to download the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It's your crazy simple way. Just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more of your favorite players. And then boom, you're in the mix for big cash. Pick 6 available right here in Missouri. Don't miss out on the fun. Don't settle for smaller payouts. Switch to Pick 6. And right now, new customers can get $25 in bonus picks for their first deposit of $5. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
So once again, 7-4, the final score tonight. The Cardinals on top of the Rays, but we have to tackle the concept, I guess, of the bullpen, and they have been doing fairly well. So Ethan, let's go ahead and hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, you look at the line score tonight. You get an inning out of Kyle Leahy. I know his second inning, he started that would have been the 7th inning, and ran into a little bit of trouble. So they bring in Matt Swanson to clean things up. He's able to do so relatively well. A little bit of traffic, couple of walks. Jojo Romero looked really strong in his 2 innings of work, struck out 3, just allowed 1 hit. I don't think a lot of people expected him to work the 9th inning as well, or the entire 9th inning, considering Riley O'Brien had been warming up to come into the game. It seemed like it was Romero is going to go until he allows a runner to reach base, and he never did. So, yeah, I really liked what we saw from Jojo Romero. I know it was a little bit of traffic for Leahy and Swanson, but you look at this Cardinals bullpen, and all of a sudden there's some real players, I think, and I think looking back at by the season's end, one of the biggest positive signs that you're going to, I think, take from this year is how the Cardinal bullpen performed in the second half of the season. I mentioned those few guys. Riley O'Brien's been really sharp as well. I think Recefo's been decent during his time. I'm still intrigued to see what Jorge Alcala looks like here down the stretch if he can continue improving. But, good baseball teams have to have strong bullpens. And the thing that excites me about this bullpen is how young it is, how many of these guys you look at and you say they could potentially be a part of a core bullpen. And bullpen pieces are so volatile. They could be really good one year and not nearly as good the next. So you never know if you're going to consistently get it from them. But when you look at how young, how little experience these guys have, and for them to already be contributing to the level that they are, you look at it and you say, well, that's one area that the Cardinals will not have to spend nearly as much in the offseason. Now, I know that their 2026 isn't necessarily looking to be a year where the Cardinals are going to be competing for a world championship, but, it wouldn't surprise me to see them add a couple of Phil Maton-esque pieces. Not to say you're going to get someone that was nearly as dominant as he was in the first half of the year, but more so just a couple of guys, veteran pieces that you're only going to pay a few $1 million to. And then all of a sudden, if you're still not in the spot that you'd like to be, you can sell them off at the deadline and get a few more prospects and continue to load the system up to rehabilitate your prospect system a little bit. But overall, as far as the core goes, I really like what the Cardinals have, and I'm going to be really curious to see what it looks like come 2026. I think there's a lot of interesting headlines to, what is this going to look like? What is that going to look like for this upcoming team? And I will say this past offseason, while it needed to happen, it was boring. It was super boring, right? You kind of knew what you had. The only question mark was Nolan Arenado going to get traded? And as much of a disappointment as that was, as far as based off what the goal was for this team, there's so many question marks around what so many different parts of your roster are going to look like next year, as well as a certain number one prospect that could be potentially a part of the big league club next year as well. I think that those things alone should bring a little bit more intrigue to the Cardinals this offseason. And I think that there are some encouraging things to take away from what's happening in 2025 from some of the individual pieces.
So what do you think about J.J. Romero real quick before we wrap things up? Like, he's pitched more, 2 innings, 3 innings. Like, do you see maybe a move for him to be kind of up more as like a mid reliever, or do you think where he's at, he's going to stay?
No, he's definitely going to stay. I'm scrolling through looking here. He actually really hasn't done a lot of multi-inning stuff. Kyle Leahy has, though. In fact, Jojo Romero, this was his first time this year completing a full 2 innings of work. Had gone into a second inning of work on the occasion, but he had been the Cardinals' highest leverage left-handed relief pitcher this year. So, yeah, I see him continuing to remain in that spot. I will say this. I think some people have already set in their minds that he's going to be the closer in 2026. I haven't made that decision in my mind. I think it makes much more sense to have a right-handed closer. One, because the Cardinals lack high leverage left-handed relief pitchers, and you need to be able to rely on a guy like him to go through the toughest parts of a lineup, whether that be in the 6th, 7th, or 8th inning at times. And if you are limiting him to the 9th, I think you are potentially doing a disservice. As far as guys I could see them stretching out, I think it would shock me if Kyle Leahy is not heading into camp next year as a starting pitcher. That doesn't mean he's going to start in the 26th rotation, but I think he'll definitely be getting work in as a starter at when pitchers and catchers report in early February. You just look at his stuff, 6-pitch mix. It's not a lot of swing and miss. It feels like it makes a lot more sense for him to be able to eventually be a starting pitcher. And we know that the Cardinals do not have they don't have a lot of young starting pitching depth that's going to be healthy or ready for the majors in 2026. That's why I look at Kyle Leahy and I see, man, adding him to the rotation potentially helps you out a lot. You don't know if Sonny Gray is going to be here next year. You'll have Liberatore, McGreevy. Who else are they going to have next year? I'm totally blanking off the top of my head. Palante and Leahy potentially. That's 4. Gray would be a 5th. So maybe
guys fighting for spots for sure. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, outside of that, how many other guys in organization right now do you feel like are going to be really fighting for a spot in 2026? There's not. So I feel like it would be really nice if Kyle Leahy had a really good camp and had a really strong spring training to where you feel like you could plug him into your rotation and feel good about it. Because unless the Cardinals get some really good return, some starting pitching return, which I'd be surprised if they get any necessarily that's ready for 2026. I think that you're going to have to, almost, I don't want to say rely because you want to put him in the spot that's best for him. But the Cardinals, I think, are going to need Kyle Leahy to be a starting pitcher in 2026. Last thing I'll say here real quick, Jojo for Prez, love that. And then Matt Davis saying Matt Swanson should be a closer. Ollie Marmol was asked this the other day if he sees Matt Swanson as a guy that has the stuff to take over that role. And he paused for a moment. He thought about it and he said, I want to see more. So I think he's liked what he has seen from Matt Swanson so far. But
which means it's not out of question. Which means there's still a possibility.
Absolutely, definitely not out of question. I think Ollie was just making it clear. Yes, I've liked what we've seen so far. Small sample size. Let's see that continue throughout the remainder of the year. He's been good in high leverage, but it's been very small sample size of high leverage. So I agree. He definitely could be the closer. No guarantee at this point, though.
Well, 100%. We appreciate everyone who has joined us here tonight. If you haven't subscribed or been a part of this membership, please do so. We love the chat. We love the involvement. We love the conversation. And we are on here 24/7 with all the latest breaking news in St. Louis when it comes to sports. So please continue to be a part of this. Once again, the St. Louis Cardinals win an odd game against the Rays, and they take it by a score of 7-4. They will be off on Saturday, which was the makeup game for today, and they'll play again on Sunday. So we have a game tomorrow and then off Saturday. But we appreciate you joining us here on the Cards Postgame Show. That's the amazing Ethan Hannaford. I'm Sara Dayley. I'm just along for the ride, but we'll see you right back here next time. So have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.